Hello tanks and tankettes, and welcome to my look at the T-44-100, which of course there is a mission running for at the moment. Now I'm a little behind with this, but the mission is still very much in progress. In fact, I think it's going through till, what is it, the first week of October? So if you are unaware, if you've been hiding under a rock, basically, at least this is how it is on the EU, you have to do 150,000 damage for every national line, and you need 150 kills for every national line, and each one of these will give you a token. And in theory, as with these previous missions, you can get a tier 8 premium tank for absolutely free. Now they've done this before with I think it was the WZ-111, or was it the 112? No, it was the WZ-111, and they've also done it with the Type 62. But this is the first time they've done it with a tank that hasn't previously been on sale. This is the first time that anybody's had the opportunity to have the T-44-100. Is it worth just going and buying all the tokens at once? No, it's not that good. It's alright, but it's not that good. And what Wargaming are obviously hoping is that people will buy at least some tokens, that they'll grind out maybe 3 or 4, and then they'll buy some tokens. And if you are buying, say, 3, maybe 4 tokens, at that point it becomes, I think, more worth it. I'll also note that there is a possibility this might be on sale as just a regular tier 8 premium medium at some point. I don't know that for a fact. That's been a maybe from Wargaming. So if you're not interested in the missions, if you're not interested in stumping up for all of the tokens, which, as I've said, is not, in my opinion, worth it, then you might get a chance to buy it at a regular tier 8 price later on. But the draw of this is that even if it is on sale as a regular later on, you're getting the chance to buy it for less than you would pay for a regular tier 8 premium. So I'm not going to go over the stats too much because, well, basically it's a premium T-44 with the 100mm gun. This is a tank that already exists in the game. The biggest difference between the two is, in fact, in the armor model. Now, we're just going to go out of full screen mode here. This is a bit messy doing it this way, but for some reason with tanks.gg, if I'm full screen, it won't then give me the option of changing tabs easily. So we'll have a quick look at the comparative stats. This is the T-44, and this is the T-44, oh, the 44-100, and this is the T-44 with the, I believe it's the LB1. Yes, there we go. So the LB1. You've got 2 100mm gun possibilities, and it's this one. As you can see, the gun stats are pretty much identical. Aim time is very slightly better, and that's quite nice. Turret traverse bloom is very slightly better, which again is not bad. Mobility is probably the biggest change between the two in terms of the raw numbers. It's got a 520 horsepower engine, so I mean 15.65, and compare it to these other premium tanks, it's not bad. It's still a decent power to weight ratio. The best thing about it, however, is these terrain resistances, which are very good indeed. And of the premiums that I've picked for comparison, only the FE4202 beats it, but that's a much slower machine. It gets a slightly better, well, in theory, a slightly better hull traverse, but we've fallen down that trap before, so it gets a better hull traverse than all of these other premiums. But if you looked at the true hull traverse of the T-44, it probably would be as good as that, maybe even slightly better. The one real oddity I noted when looking at these is that the engine health is quite weak. It's actually the same as the T-54 first prototype and the Type 59, in fact. So it might be more prone to taking engine damage. And you've also, because you've not got a choice of engines, you've got a slightly higher fire chance than the T-44 as well. But otherwise, it's basically a premium T-44. And the biggest changes are in the armor. Now, it might be down to the fact that this is a collision model. This is an HD model, whereas the T-44, the regular T-44, isn't yet. So, in terms of the hull, we can just quickly go back and forth between the two. It's 100mm, not 100, 90mm. The sloping is pretty much the same. The side armor is 75, the rear armor is 45, and that's exactly the same. There are visually, the biggest difference is this gets side skirts, which are spaced armor. They actually are in the collision model, so anybody firing heat, you know, this will eat some of that. But, you know, people are going to realize that, hey, it looks like spaced armor, I'm not going to fire heat at that. And it really, like, it might catch a few stray shells, but there will be much better, like the turret, for instance, isn't necessarily going to resist heat all that well. So it's all right to have it there. It doesn't really cost you anything having it there, but it's probably not going to be that useful overall. But the biggest differences are in the turrets. Now, it might be that the T-44 turret ends up looking like this, because at the moment it's a slightly different shape. It's got different, if we compare the two visually, it's got less kind of armor zones. This is a wider, sort of slightly fatter looking turret. So I don't know, that might become more like this turret, maybe. You can see they are roughly the same shape, but they are a bit different. But because this is HD and the other one isn't, the T-44 turret is maybe a little bit stronger, in fact. Now, you've got a fairly large gun mantlet. This, because it's wider, you've still got this little 120mm bit at the front, but this is a bigger zone of 120mm armor here. And as it goes outwards, I think the overall effective armor is probably a bit better, just because this is slightly flatter. In fact, you get this midpoint of the turret here, and it's not, at least on this side, it's actually like, that's only about 100mm effective just over. On this side, it's a bit stronger. It might be the same on this. Turrets are not quite symmetrical. In fact, yeah, this is undoubtedly the stronger turret overall. So, don't like particularly rely on the armor of this thing, is the takeaway. You wouldn't in a T-44, and you don't want to in the T-44-100 either, because it does not have particularly bouncy armor. It's not like the first prototype where the gimmick is that it's got like an extra 30mm of frontal armor and the turret's reasonably tough as well. So all that said, let's get on to some gameplay. So, first match, and as you can see, pretty good matchmaking. It is nominally a tier 9 game, but there's only 2 per side, so that shouldn't really be an issue. Neither of the matches I have selected are going to be anything more than fairly solidly average, and that's not necessarily a bad thing when you're doing these kind of reviews, because yeah, you can put in lots of ace tanker games and be doing millions of damage, but it's not necessarily representative of the average gameplay, although it is fairly entertaining to watch. However, in this case, I mean, I could pretend like this was intentional that I picked these two, but these were some of the best ones, and I wasn't playing particularly that well, but I was still getting some fairly reliable damage results. I was easily getting around 2k damage a game, and these are 2 of those games where I got at or over 2k damage. So on that count alone, I kind of like it, just for that reliability, and especially as it's a premium tank, if you know that you are going to reliably be able to or you are expecting to be able to do a certain amount of damage, let's put it that way, then you will know roughly how much money you're going to make, because obviously being premium, part of the attraction for having this thing is to get those nice credits and get that crew XP. So I'm going to start off in this particular one. I've come up the hill. I am going to do a little bit of side scraping against this Panther 2, and although 75mm side armor isn't that much on its own, you've actually also got that extra bit of armor from the side skirts, and against medium tanks, you know, 75mm is going to be enough. You'd rather they shoot the side armor than the turret. And in fact, I don't think there's really much that would be able to overmatch. Like, it might literally just be the T-92 firing AP shells that might overmatch when you're side scraping, because that's what, 240mm? And although there are plenty, well, I say plenty, there are 150mm and above guns. The ×2 overmatch is a thing, but ×3 overmatch is the one that matters. So 75mm is definitely enough in that case. Anyway, I've landed precisely 1 hit so far, and it was a little below average, but that's fine. But I can see that, well, we've got a whole lot of tanks in the northwest quadrant, and we really didn't have anything on the 7-8 line, and they've just come up round behind us. They're now pushing towards our cap, but they're doing the thing that you see teams doing sometimes. Instead of continuing to push together as a solid group of tanks, they are just fragmenting and all doing their own thing, and so what looks like it could be a very dangerous situation instead becomes something a little more comfortable. Now, as the T-54 has moved up, I get a little more confidence and do a little drive-by of the Oni, and then I do something completely silly. I know that's a 51-20. For some reason I had in my head that surely he doesn't have many shots left at this point, but no. I am in severe danger of dying, and I very luckily got away with that because I think, what, 2 of his shells went in my tracks. Now, one of those was also a damaging hit, but that last one wasn't. So, potentially, that could have been very nasty because the 2 that did pen me were both above average rolls. So I really don't know what I was thinking there. I cannot say on the couple of days when I played this with the preview account that I had. I think I played it over 2 days, and it was probably a couple of hours each time, but I probably just wasn't playing that well, and sometimes it's like that when you get these preview accounts with a deadline, and you know you're not playing that well, but you just have to keep trying anyway, and I think that was the case here. So side scraping again against the Jagdtiger, who's got an 88mm gun, so I know I don't have to worry about that too much, but because he's more or less hull down, I'm kind of struggling here. I can't pen him, and even with the APCR it's not really having any impact. So yeah, I think I might just have to leave that to my allies and go and find something else to shoot at. And, well, there's a Ferdinand, and he's actually heading in the other direction, so I can probably just come up behind him and go, haha, I bet you wish you had a turret now. Now that was a bit of a cheeky shot, but it worked, and I was actually surprised by how often I was landing those kind of shots, just firing on the move, and it does have enough ammo that it feels like, unless you're running critically low and it's quite late in the match, firing those shots on the move did feel worthwhile, because it would connect sometimes, and those times when it does connect, it's very useful. And I suspect that the T-44 must be exactly the same, because the gun handling stats are largely the same. It really is only a slightly better aim time on this, but a better aim time is always nice. So looking for more targets, I mean, the enemy team has pretty much collapsed. We're not that far apart on numbers, but just looking at the scattered nature of the rest of the enemy team, yeah, we've basically got this. Again, the Panther, well, again a Panther, and again an 88mm gun, but this time I angled a bit too far, or possibly it went in the turret, I'm not sure. But I've got him tracked anyway. The T-34, well, I did have him tracked. I might have gotten some assistance out of that. The T-34 is coming out behind him, so this is just... And again, a tracking shot! Oh well, I'm at least getting assistance. But yeah, I don't know. If I'd angled a bit better there, I might have bounced that shot. And if I'd aimed a little better, I probably could have gotten actual damage out of it. But as it was, I at least still got some assistance damage. So just artillery and T-71. The T-71, I'm more worried about. He could potentially just get me with like 2 or 3 shots. He definitely has enough penetration. His penetration is almost as good as mine. However, the arty cap timer just goes off, and well, we know exactly where he is. Now, somebody in the chat, if you're wondering why I held fire there, I really shouldn't have. Somebody in the chat went, T-54, go for Top Gun. And I didn't actually look to see how many kills he had. I assumed he was sitting on 5 kills, and then thought, okay, we'll let him maybe get the shot, which he didn't. The T-28-HTC actually got that kill, and he is on 4 kills anyway, so he would have had to kill both the remaining enemies for a Top Gun. So that was entirely misplaced. I should have just taken the shot. I was being altruistic when there really wasn't any point in being altruistic. I built myself out of a little bit of damage and a kill there. And the satisfaction of killing artillery, which is always, you know, that's obviously a major factor, yes. So the T-71, he's basically done for, and yeah, he might kill me, but I've got the element of surprise here, at least in theory. And there we go, fire on the move, get the kill, and that is the game. So that could have been a little bit better damage-wise, but with some of my, air quotes, unlucky shots, they at least tracked and got me some assistance damage out of that as well. So 2,000 damage done and another nearly 1,300 assistance. Unsurprisingly, the T-54 was top of the team, but we were basically, we had the same XP, 1,073. I'm not quite sure why the game then went and put him ahead of me, but maybe he had like half an XP point more, or maybe it then has a little rule where it puts the higher tier tank at the top, I don't know. But I was joint first place, technically, in terms of XP, and profit-wise, 65k. Not bad at all, not bad at all. Next up, Windstorm. Again, good matchmaking, in fact better matchmaking this time. There are some very unlucky tier 6s in the bottom third of the team. There's a couple of tier 7s wedged in the middle. There's like, what, 2 tier 7s per team? Now our team's got 3, theirs has got 2, and then the rest is tier 8. So this is very good tier 8 matchmaking. Now I don't normally go here, so I wasn't really sure what to expect. I'm not quite sure what impulse made me go here, only that if you're on the other side, you quite frequently see tanks going there, and lo and behold, yes, there are. But there's also a 110. Not 110. Yes, there is a 110. Wow. My brain was thinking, for some reason, my autocorrect kicked in and was like, ha, you said T10, that's a tier 9. No, it's a 110. Well done, brain. My brain is correcting me on mistakes that I haven't even made. That's special. Anyway, the 110 is a problem because he's got quite a nice gun, he's a heavy tank, and if he can be hulled down, I'm going to struggle a bit unless he just sits and lets me aim at his cupolas, which he's not really going to do. But also, I could have aimed that one. I was just, I don't know, I've been snapshotting this all day long, clearly, and I think that's one of the things, like, I was able to take some shots where I got snapshots and was able to land snapshots. And I then got to a point where I was like relying on it, and you still do have to sit and aim sometimes. So that was just bad play on my part. So I sneak a shot into him. The T-44-100 actually came forward to help out, but I am just, I don't know, I'm trading health against this 110 in a bad way. And of course that T-44-100 coming forwards was useful, but they still had other stuff on the corner. So yeah, this hasn't been a great start. I've lost half my health and I've only done maybe 500, just over 500 damage. There we go. It actually says on the damage counter to this guy in return, and he can better afford to lose that health than I can. He isn't, however, pressing his advantage, so this isn't completely untenable, but I don't particularly want to hang around in this position. That shot, that was just bad luck. I was going for his side armor and it just went up into his turret instead. But RNG sometimes does steal your shells like that. So he decides to come forward and side scrape. I realise the T-34 behind me is dead. And I slightly panic and just do the only thing I can think of to do, which is reverse the hell out of there, which is incredibly risky because yes, by all rights, I probably should have died doing that, but instead I got away with it, and sometimes you need a bit of luck. But my nearest backup at this point is the Rheinmetall there, so if I'd hung around, I'm pretty sure the 110 would have killed me. And instead I took the massive risk that I really didn't have a choice about taking, and got out of there, well, alive. I won't say safely, but I got out of there alive. Now I probably shouldn't have been still in that position to begin with. It probably should have disengaged before that point. In fact, probably shouldn't have just gone to that corner at all, because there's not an easy way to get out of there if you end up with a heavy tank on one side and a bunch of other tanks sitting looking at you across the bridge from the other. But it's worked out. More through luck than skill, but it has worked out. 110 just stops. I was expecting him to go forwards. Again, firing on the move. Yeah, I mean, those shots will work sometimes, but if you're relying on doing damage that way, yeah, life gets a bit more tricky. We've stabilised things though, and we've lost a lot of tanks, but we have stabilised things. The remaining enemies, we know there's a 30 near their base. There we go, the Panther 2's down. The STA actually takes a hit, and I can get another one into the 110 in return. That leaves him a one-shot. However, I'm definitely a one-shot for him unless he rolls low. But him looking at me gave the Rhymator perfect opportunity to come up behind him. So that leaves an Oni, Ferdinand back at the base, and there's a Chaffee somewhere as well. So a BCR for the Oni because frontally, it's the only way I was going to get him. And the one shot where I do sit and aim while somebody else ninjas the kill. Yeah, what are you going to do, eh? What are you going to do? So back to AP. I know I don't need it for the Ferdy or the Chaffee. I'm not planning to... Like the Ferdinand's weak spots are well known at this point. If you're going to sit and just try and spam through their superstructure armor with most tanks when you could just go for weak spots, I mean, you can do that with a lot of the higher tier guns if you just load the premium, but it's awfully lazy. It is awfully lazy. Ferdy is done for and he knows it. He's basically surrounded at this point. He's trying to make a getaway, but it's not going to last him that long, and I don't even get a second shot off there. He dies so quickly. I did get a bit more damage out of him though. So that just leaves the Chaffee, and I've actually done so far a bit less damage than the last game, and I think my result for this one is actually worse than the last game as well, but it's still... This is still fairly indicative of the games I was having. And if you are playing better than I was playing, which probably isn't hard looking back at the games that I did save from when I had the preview account for this, I think you can expect to do a good 2,000 plus damage, unless you get a team that just collapses inside of 3 minutes, because, you know, that can happen. It is just all round a pretty decent tank, and of course, being a premium, you can put your existing Soviet medium crews in there. Now, I don't have any good ones. My best, highest tier Soviet medium tank is the T-43, and I think I actually used my T-43 crew in this. And I think that might actually also be my only regular Soviet medium crew. I might have gotten a few from event tanks that are sitting there with like 100% on their primary skill and then no perks or anything. But as far as the T-43 crew goes, they're on their like second skill at this point. Not particularly a skilled crew, and I think with a better crew, I mean, if you've got like a T-54 or an Object 140 or something like that, then yeah, you're going to have a pretty good crew sitting around. So with a good crew, this thing will perform even better. But I just like the one thing I liked overall about it, and it bodes well for getting the T-44, is just the mobility of it. And the fact that it turns so well. I mean, the terrain resistances obviously help a bit there as well. But with the T-44 getting even better horsepower per weight, then I expect I'll enjoy it quite a lot. So there we go. I get the entirety of the Chaffee's health, and that pushes me to almost 2,200. I actually ended up with still about 1,000 spotting damage as well. So that wasn't too bad, but score-wise it was actually worse. That was only worth a second class. So second place on the team again, and I don't know what else to say. Really, it was an okay game. There was nothing spectacular about it. It was towards the top of the team in terms of like damage and XP, but as you can see, the Rhymator did a bit more. This game was actually even more profitable. I made 74,000 credits that time, and I think that's just from having done that extra bit of damage. So yeah, as a premium tank, it's all right. And given that the tank it's based on is also all right, they would have to have done something specifically to mess it up. And in a way, I think, I mean, it's quite nice that we're seeing some of these. Like, if you like a particular vehicle and you see there's a premium version of it, then you know you're going to like it. But it's also indicative of the fact that wargaming is just running out of stuff to add to the game. We're going to see a lot more of these, I suspect, in terms of things being added as premiums, because after the Swedish tanks come in, it's like that there was only so many tanks that were ever actually made that are in the time period that World of Tanks covers. And it's not a unique problem to this game. War Thunder has this problem as well, and they keep adding, they keep stretching out the timeline to the point where, like, if you'd said to somebody I don't know, 2 years ago. Was it? It's probably been about that, or maybe even longer since the Ground Forces beta came in. But if you'd said at that point, we're going to have ATGM tanks, and we're going to have Cold War era tanks and things with like miniguns, and they'd have probably looked at you and funny and gone, in War Thunder, are you crazy? But no, that's where we're at with War Thunder now. So they are stretching the boundaries and adding later and later period stuff in, and well, wargaming will probably have to look in some other direction, because they've known for a while that they are going to run out of tanks. I mean, it's just like we've explicitly known that they've given developer answers about this, that they have put in. I think there was an answer. We're probably going back a year and a half at least, and Serb said something like, "Well, we've put like 85 to 90% of the tanks that we have an idea of into the game already." And so, at that point, what do you do? Well, for a lot of people, it's the new content that keeps them around. So we're maybe going to see a trickle of other premiums like these, but I don't know. There's been hints that we might see maybe a development of World of Tanks, the style of World of Tanks in later eras, as Armored Warfare has done. So who knows? Who knows? But for now, the T-44-100 and the missions, yeah, it's decent. It is decent. It's an okay tank, and I personally wouldn't mind owning one. But I'm not sure I can be bothered to do the missions, and I'm not sure I really want to pay as much as all the tokens would cost. So if it comes along as a regular tier 8 premium at some point later on, then quite probably yes. But until that point, I will quite happily just hold off. Anyway, hopefully you have found this useful, and if you have, you can hit the like button, you can leave any comments below, you can sub to my channel if you haven't already, and as always, stay tuned for more.